didn't look carefully enough, but I think we finished all the Maimarim for both, because there's only two. And I was debating whether to do last week. They came out with Rav Steinsaltz's commentary on the second Maimar, which we learned. So I thought maybe it would be a good idea to do it. So let's see how this goes.
What is this?
Okay, this is Liozna. I don't know the date, but it's sometime before
Printed when?
1799. Et'halech Liozna.
Memoriam of the Rebbe?
Yeah. Okay, so these are the very, very short ones. But they're very powerful. There's a pasuk in Mishlei, Proverbs. It says that a man walks by his tzelem. Tzelem literally means shadow. Tzel is really shadow. Tzelem is not the image. But the word that I think we'll use here is impression. By impressions. Impressions of what? Impressions of his soul. Okay, so let's see what this means. It says the essence of the soul itself, the substance of the soul itself, does not enclose in the body. It's outside of the body. But the extension, or you could call it the projection, of the soul's substance in its 5 levels. It has 5 different impressions, 5 different levels. We call Naran Chai, right? Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chaya Yechidah. That are in the substance of the soul. They appear in the body as what we call impressions. Okay? So they impress the body. Why do we call it impression? He says because Kamashal Tzelem V'Dmut Shel Chakikat HaShe'ava. It's like the impression and the image that's formed in wax. Okay? In the physical wax, Me'otiyot Tabat HaChotam, from the letters and the insignia.
Mirror image. Or male and female image.
It's not mirror image.
Male and female image.
One's engraved and one's embossed. But the embossed, what he calls here the image, here he's calling the letters in the insignia, he's calling them an image or an impression. Now it's kind of confusing because the image would be the letters on the insignia and the impression would be the letters in the wax.
Mm-hmm.
But he's calling them the same. He's calling both by the same. This was written down by somebody, so I'm not sure whether to take it apart and say that one of them is the letters in the insignia and the other is the letters in the impression. It's not clear. But in any case, what he means to say is that the letters themselves are on the insignia. אף על פי שאותיות הטבעת עיקר העצם שהם העושים צלם ודמות בשעבה. Because so we call these impressions, we call them an image, even though the main part of the image, the substance of the image, is on the insignia. It's the letters the way they are on the ring, and the signet ring. עם כל זה נקראים אותיות הטבעת גם כן בשם צלם ודמות. Nonetheless, the letters on the insignia, even though they're the real letters, they are also called an image and an impression, even though they're the real letters. Because they are what cause the impression in the wax. They cause the letters in the wax. And that is what? הערת הנפש המתפשטת להחיות איברי הגוף.
What's the goof? The goof is the wax?
No, yeah, the goof is the wax. So now we have the insignia letters that are causing an impression in the body, in the wax. And that's the same thing as the soul causing an impression in the body. And that impression, נקראים איברי הנפש, is called the organs or the parts of the psyche. Meaning that it's as if it's in the body. And the impression is all there is. But it's as if the origin is in the body, meaning it's as if the signet ring is in the wax, as if the psyche is in the body.
So who put the nefesh in there? Shem.
Okay, it's like
So therefore, whatever neshama Kodesh Baruch Hu gives you, that's what makes the person in the body. So therefore, it's not the body's fault if it does good or bad. No, kol hakavod if it does
It's
good.
nothing to do with
No, 'cause the whole
actions. We're talking about character.
Depends, the characters is the same thing. Whatever he does is preordained.
No, character is not the same thing as what you do. What's the connection? Just because you have a proclivity towards something doesn't mean you have to do it. You have free will. You decide whether you want to express your character this way or express it that way. Like what we've seen many, many times. With, for instance, a person has a proclivity for shedding blood. He can decide to become a slaughterer, a shochet. He can decide to become a circumciser. There's nothing that says how you have to express your character traits. You can decide how to use them. We're talking here just about the character. Now, the point here is not so much about telling us that you have a character. We know that. The point is understanding that all that you have in your body, all that there is as the organs of the psyche, they are just an impression from the source. They're not the source itself. And this becomes interesting in a moment. כי מצד חקיקת התפשטות איברי הנפש באיברי הגוף שאינו עצמיות הנפש, ולכן נקראים בשם צלם, אף על פי שהם אותיות הנפש עצמה. So now we have this, that the impression, the extension or the projection of the psyche into the body, even though it's not the psyche itself, it's not the soul itself, but this impression is called the tzelem. It's called the tzelem. Tzelem is like what we just said. It's an impression, but it's the projection of the body's of the substance of the soul into the body. Even though you can't say that they're different, they're the same letters that were on the source. They are on the signet ring. They're the same letters exactly. You don't get something else. So what good is it? So why do we need this whole process? Why not just give the letters themselves? Why make this double process? The first you have to have letters on the signet ring, and then you have to impress them on the wax, or have the psyche, and then have the psyche as it's impressed on the body. The same thing goes for not just the psyche, but for the spirit. The soul also. What's the soul? The soul is already thought. Meaning the mind, the seichel, the intellect that a person has, it's now affecting his character. Even that is only an impression, because it's not the soul itself. The soul is making an impression on the body. Okay? So the psyche is the lower habits, the lower actions, the lower character traits. The spirit is already love and fear and compassion.
Spirit.
Ruach. And neshama, the soul, that's already the mind. That's where the chokhmah bin and das, right? The intellectual field. So they all work the same way. It's only an impression that you have in your mind, and not the source. You don't have the source itself. So they're called imra katnut hamochin b'bchinat otiyot sheba lachkok tzurat hamidot. So this is called still small intellect, small-mindedness, because it's only a tzelem. That's all you have. So what's the idea here? Why not make it direct? Why not put the soul itself, the psyche itself, the spirit itself into the body? So he says, "Minei kol zman she'adam mitgadel, nichnasim bo tzalmei hanefesh b'klei haguf." As a person is maturing, more and more of these impressions are coming down. So one way of thinking of it is that it's a very big ring, and every time you see like different letters are being impressed on the body, but I think that's not what he means. He means to say that the impression, it's like it's being pushed further in. So in the beginning, all you see is like an outline. You have an outline of the letters, an outline of the idea. So if your character, let's say, in habits, you would say that a person is stingy by habit. So you don't have something very strong. It's just like an impression that says stingy. It's very like, and it's easy, theoretically, it would be easy to like maybe erase it, or change it a little bit. You could do all kinds of things with it. But as it sinks in, it becomes more and more clear that what this thing is. But you can already see it at the beginning. You can see at the beginning of a person's life the outline of what their character is going to become like. That's in the behavior. When you're talking about the emotions, so also you see in the beginning what his nature is like. Is he loving? Is he a person who's in a lot of fear all the time? Like, what kind of person is he? And you see the same thing in the thought. But in the thought, which is where he's going, the whole deal is a little bit different. Because what you see in the beginning is you see just an outline of what you're going to be thinking about in your life. So let's say you thought a lot about pharmaceuticals. Okay? So if I would go back into your child's mind, I would see that there was that type of thinking already there. I'm not saying that you already knew what pharmaceuticals were, but you had something that was already, you could tell that the outline, this is fitting, this type of thinking is fitting for doing such and such a type of job. But this happens to us all the time, meaning what he's saying is that the reason that life seems like we're maturing is because the impression is becoming stronger and stronger all the time. That's why it's very hard to, as they say, teach an old dog new tricks. It's very hard to teach somebody who's older something new, because the engraving is already very, very deep. So what it was, like whatever this was, whatever the signet ring had on it, whatever the soul had to give, it's given fully. But that's only one part of it. We'll see that it's a little bit more complex. וכשהוא קטן הוא רק דוגמת בצלם העצמות. וכשהוא קטן ביותר הוא רק דוגמה דוגמה, כמו הקוף לאדם. So he says it's also the ability to do these things. Meaning, it's not just the beginning of something, it's that you do it in a childish manner. Meaning, let's say, I had friends when I was growing up you could tell that they would be organizational people. Because they all the time had to, like political organization. In their house, they had to have, like we were 10 years old, and they had to have a shul in their house. For kids. Like they would bring a minyan in, even though we weren't 13 yet. And they would bring 10 kids in, and we daven mincha together. And they do this for months at a time. I don't even know how they had so much stamina. But you could see that they weren't doing it just for the davening. They were doing it because their enjoyment was to get people to come together and do something. So one of them, it turned out as time went on that it was one of them that was doing it, and the brother was just going along. And the one who was motivated to do this from himself, he became a politician. So he's not so famous, but he's well known. I mean, he's well known enough. But he had that in him from childhood. And then at some point they decided they would turn their books in the house into a library. And what did they want? Like, what was the thing that they wanted? At least what I picked up is that they wanted the interaction with people and getting people to come and go and take things and bring them back. And that whole interaction was like a very political interaction for them. And you saw it right away. It's like what they do right away. And the same way you see that, a child who's very good at mathematics, or a child who's very good in the chumash, or whatever it is. You see that they enjoy it from a young age, but it's childish. They can't. It's only an impression. But that impression is already the soul leaving the engraving beginning. It's beginning to make an impression. And every day of life, there's a new tzelem, there's a new impression that's being made on a person.
If I go down, or else you'll lose the meaning.
You davened already. So there's no meaning yet. So much so that the lighter impressions, they're like a monkey facing a man. It's like the way that a monkey copies a human being. They just copy what they see. They don't know yet what it really is. This is very deep. Like if a person goes back to his childhood and looks at what are the things that left an impression on me. What did I want to be like? What was something that attracted me? So in childhood everything is you're a blank slate, right? It's just open for everything. So whatever impression was made, that's what drew you. So if you go back and you try to recollect what at age 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, what was I drawn to at that time, you can tell what your soul is trying to engrave on you. And if you understand what that was, you understand how to guide yourself as you become older, because the engraving just gets deeper and deeper. It doesn't change the letters. Okay? The letters are still the same letters. It's just that it becomes more and more. And what you were doing as a child was just like a copying something that you'd seen. But really, as it becomes deeper, then you become authentic. That's what's called authenticity. You become more and more connected to the substance of who you are. And that's why the substance can't come out until you're much older. Because it's not engraved yet. It's not the organ, the spirit.
You also don't have the mental facilities to be able to.
So that's in the mental, because most people, for most things, at age 15, 16, you already have all the mental capacity you'll ever have. It doesn't get better. What gets better is how engraved this is in you and how much time you're willing to spend thinking about it. It's the depth, not the call it the breadth or the topic itself. But I want to get to the example. The example is tremendous. The character trait that he has, whether it be in his habits, in his emotions, or in his mind, won't change over life. Just at the beginning, it was just an impression. And as you mature, as you grow older, the sign of maturation, of maturity, is that these impressions become further and further engraved, more and more deeply. And that's why the child does not want exactly the same thing. But he wants something similar to it. In general principle. So it's another example. So you have a child who wants to play an instrument. That's what he really wants. Because he enjoys the sound of the violin. And enjoying, understanding the sound of the violin, understanding the music, that's already the mature version of the soul, of the psyche. How does it appear when he's young? ובקטנותו חשקו לעשות כינור מן העצים ולנגן עליו בלי שישמע קולו. When he's young, what he wants is to build a violin and to play on it without it making any kind of music. It doesn't make any sound. So what does he want? Well, it's a very interesting example. It's a make-believe. But it's very interesting make-believe, because he's saying that in his essence what he's connected to is the music. So how could it be enough for him to just make something that's like a violin, and because that's all he has? Because it hasn't been engraved in. Like you said, sometimes he doesn't have the capacity to go and buy a violin or something. So he takes a piece of wood and he makes like as if he's doing something. So he's playing it. He's not really playing it. So what's going on? So this is the thing that he's hinting to here. The whole time it's called slamim. Why is it called slamim? Because in a certain sense it's a make-believe. It's an impression of the origin, of the authentic image. So it's like my whole life I'm making believe something that's real. And the question is, when am I going to get to the authentic aspect of it? So let's continue tomorrow and see what he says.
Tomorrow I'm not here.
Not here.
Tomorrow is Meet the Wife Day.